And so when we thought about a space we would work out of, I could have chosen WeWork, where I first met Mr. Clayton Banks, but I found out there was going to be a new space that was developed. And I had to follow him because there is nothing like the support of leaders like him. Woo! And the community that is here with the entire leadership, Bruce Lincoln, Eric Cunningham. When you are an entrepreneur, for all of us that know what that path is, there are days where you just need to feel that love, right? And boost of confidence, and that is what I get here. And I come from all the way deep into Queens. So when I tell you this space makes a difference, it's worth all the travel. It's actually only like 30, 40 minutes over the transit. And so I'll pass it off to Kim to talk about her membership.
Thank you, Walla. Thank you. So we're very excited to be here tonight. I, too, am a member of Uptown Space in Silicon Harlem. I'm the founder and CEO of UVI, which is a mobile learning app that enables students to respond to their assignments with videos and audio and text. We're launching pilots next week with CUNY. We just got our NWBE license, so we'll be bidding on contracts soon. But I really owe it all to like Silicon Harlem in so many ways. And Clayton, we actually hosted our very first demo at WeWork. I mean, a part of the reason there is a WeWork in Harlem is because of people like Clayton in Silicon Harlem. So just, seeing everyone here tonight is a true testament to the amazing things they're doing here for the community, and so much more to come in technology. So I look forward to talking to you all, and thank you for coming. Now here's Clayton. Y'all. Check out the shoes.
Testing. Thank you, members of Uptown Space. Where's Bruce at? Bruce, come on up here. So, we're so proud of them and many more. Another one of our members over there, Hans. So, Kathy lives in the building too. I was like, what do you got to come down here for? But we have great chemistry. He's a great mind, and all of our members we're quite proud of. And tonight is a night we would like to invite any of you that want to be a part on a regular basis of our Uptown Space. And if you hear the word Uptown Space, the acronym is US. So what we say is join us. So we're very excited about it, and I think tonight, where's Eric? Eric over here at Cunningham, he is sort of our guy who's overseeing the Uptown Space. I think he has a deal for you, so you might want to talk to him. If you're looking for that, he has a great deal for you. But also, as a member, you actually can have these kind of events. You can host events, you can have the conference room, you have all the access to what we think is important as you grow your business. And there's a lot of great people here tonight. In fact, every single one of you are great people. I know most of you, and I'm so happy to meet new people as well. I want to acknowledge just a couple of people who are here that I think are important to say right up front. So we've just done a joint venture with a company called Sky Packets. And tonight, we just joined together to literally not only take over, but to improve the quality of Wi-Fi in Harlem. So we have now acquired a network in Harlem that we're going to acquire and build and create an atmosphere where all of us can get high-speed outdoor internet. Everybody hear what I'm saying? Steve, Henry, you guys come up enough to where everybody can see you guys. These are our two new partners in that game. That's Henry waving, and that's Steve right behind him. They've done a lot of work throughout the country. They build networks everywhere. They're considered one of the top 10 building networks in the nation, so we're really excited. We've been working with them for many, many years anyway, and it just made sense for us to sort of figure out how to do this around connectivity. So thank you guys, Sky Packets. We actually signed the document tonight. So really by the way, the service that we'll be putting out there is called Better Be. So when everyone's pushing broadband and connectivity and everything else, and you hear the brand Better Be, you'll know that's Silicon Harlem. That's the real deal. So we have a vision. By the way, you know I'm going to give you the top 10 tech predictions of the soaring 20s. Does everybody know I'm going to do that? Yeah. You're going to have to hold on to that because it's going to come, though. I got some stuff that's going to blow your mind. Some of you are going to be, oh, I already know that, Clayton. Well, we'll see. Top 10 tech predictions of the soaring 20s. The 1920s was known as what? Roaring. The roaring 20s. We call this the soaring 20s. It's going to go around the world, and you will know that it came right out of Harlem. When you hear that, and you're telling your children and grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, soaring 20s started out in Harlem.
Hashtag it.
Yeah, he's on me on that kind of stuff all the time.
Do it too.
Yeah, well, I got all kind of lawyers up in here. All right. I also want to acknowledge another partner of ours that we're really working on. How do we get more and more of young people interested in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? And one of the disciplines you can learn around is called drone technology. Yeah. And one of the guys that we work with very closely is a man named Tony Reed, who's in the back over here. And literally, I think it's tomorrow, if I'm right, Tony. Tomorrow you're headed to Puerto Rico?
Yes, sir.
Tony's taking a boatload of water to Puerto Rico to help those people, as well as his drone technology to look for people. He also served in the military. He's like this unbelievable guy. So we're very proud to be a part of that. And there's so many others here that we're excited to be collaborating with. In fact, we looked at 2020 as what we call our growth will be through alignment. Growth through alignment. I hope that becomes a theme for all of us. If we can run all by ourselves, that's cool. But if we really, really think about it, the sustainability of anything that we're doing, any idea you have, is when you can really start to collaborate and work with people. So that's what we're so focused on. I also want to, can I just introduce some money right now? How about if I introduce money right now? Rennie, get up here real quick. Come up here. So Rennie is another good Silicon Harlem friend and wants to announce something right now.
All right, thanks for the introduction. So we are part of the MEP Manufacturing Extension, and we have a $5,000 grant for cybersecurity assessment following the same standards, NIST 800-171, which is required for DoD contractors. The only requirement is you're a manufacturer, you're in New York City, you're less than 500 people. The classification for manufacturing is very, very broad. So you may be a manufacturer and not realize it. All right. This is money left over from 2019 grants. We want to get rid of them, so we have about 2 weeks to get rid of $5,000. If you're in the Hudson region, we have a $2,500 grant. Thank you. See you. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's gonna see. I'm also very proud that you guys have read about some of the new investment groups that are popping up even in Harlem and around New York City, and are raising money and investing in women-owned businesses and marginalized businesses, et cetera, et cetera. And we have an investor here tonight. Come on up here and introduce yourself. Yes. I don't know how many others are in here, but we'll get them all up here if we can.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorraine Pendleton. I'm investment partner Portfolio. We just launched our 8th fund, which is called Rising America, and it's going to invest in diverse-led companies. And we have a great team of women. Actually, it's the first fund in the United States that's led by a team of Black and Latinx women. So I've got five of us, and we're all like badasses, and so we're going to have a great company, seed stage through Series C we're investing. We're industry agnostic, but focus mainly on technology, fintech, consumer. Come say hi to me. Thank you.
There you go. Hi. Didn't work. So, more things really quickly. I'm going to give you a quick review of what we've been doing at Silicon Harlem. Just take a couple of minutes, and then we're going to bring up, do you guys know the CTO of New York City is here? The Chief Technology Officer of New York City is here. And let me tell you why that's significant. One, he has basically authored a master plan for this city on basically closing the gap of connectivity, something Silicon Hall has been talking about for a long time. He has stepped up and put a plan together that's going to have money behind it, it's going to have resources behind it, and working on a way to make sure that it's in the hands of the communities, not just waiting for the big guys to do it. So it's a big deal, and this is the first time that he's going to talk about it in the public. This is brand new, starting in Harlem. That's unbelievable. Thank you, John Paul. So I'm going to do a quick thing here. For those of you who may have be seeing Silicon Hall for the first time, hopefully most of you know a lot of this already, but we start just about our every day asking the question of why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Why is this happening, or what can we do? And so we start out by thinking about how do we ensure, just through our own lens, how can we help create more opportunities for more people? So it turns out you can do that even when you're still making money. You can still make money and do really good things to encourage more people to get more behind technology and innovation as an economic engine. And that's one of the things that we're seeing here in Upper Manhattan. Where is my clicker? I would be so much more effective if I had a clicker. Well. Now, our purpose, I know I'm going to complain throughout the rest of the presentation. So one of the things that we're very, what we call ourselves is community first, right? So very much focused on not just the tech, which we're really good at, not just the advanced research that we're good at, but it really comes down to how does this impact our lives? How does this make us either more efficient? How does this help us grow economically? All those types are really important, but we believe it starts with these three pillars, which are education, which you probably have heard some of the things that we do around that, infrastructure, ensuring that the infrastructure of the future is inclusive, and that means that your voice needs to be at the table. And of course, like I said, understanding communities in a profound way. Our very sweet spot is in the urban market, right, where there's density and all these type of things. As you know, we're just passionate about technology, we're passionate about infrastructure. We've been talking a lot about digital literacy, but I look at the future, and I don't believe you will have a job if you don't have some level of data literacy. Right? We all grew up with hearing who, what, where, when, and how. That's going to be data points that every company will require. It doesn't matter if you're picking up garbage or if you're a CEO, you must have some level of data literacy. So we focus a lot on that moving in these soaring 20s. Let's see. Oh. Then I just want you guys to sort of get a sense of our values, right? So we really try to practice these on an everyday basis. Tonight is a perfect example of how we really want to bring people together. That's what we call it, galvanizing people. Because Bruce and I both have been doing a lot of this work for many years, and a lot of it was done writing white papers and going to Congress and talking up stuff. And it turned out that that was fun, and it's nice to get a slap on the back, but nothing was more effective than bringing people together. And when the community started coming together, like we are tonight, the politicians come, the public sector come, everyone wants to know what's going on. So now, Uptown has been positioned literally as a go-to place around technology and research. From our perspective, the idea of building a company that is sustainable is that you got to have some level of corporate responsibility commitment. So we try to make sure that we have a healthy workplace. Even in this location, it's fully accessible, that we have an inspired workforce. If you come work for us, you'll see what that means. And of course, major is that we listen and learn. We literally are not saying we know everything. We obviously want to make sure that we're hearing a lot from as many people as we possibly can to build the best company we possibly can. And this presentation will be up on our website, so you can look at it anytime you want. Really what's sort of the next level for us is what we call tech-enabled infrastructure. What that means is every city in this country and every state in this country, in fact every country in the world, is right now contemplating how to build an infrastructure that's going to support the future. And the future, as we all know, is starting to become defined as autonomous and virtual. So how do you design an infrastructure that will support that across the board? Silicon Harlem is becoming experts on that. We are traveling all over the world talking about it, connecting with people all over the world, and we think New York City ought to be not only the biggest city, but the most connected city in the world, and that will require an infrastructure that John Paul is going to be helping to captain, but we're going to be right there with him to make sure that Upper Manhattan and other cities around the country are going to be at the forefront of that and not wait to be on the train itself. So what we do, and when I looked at this, I got tired. But I'm telling you, I love the work. From the meetups that we do, from all the students that we've been able to impact, to the senior citizens that we work with, and all of the other things that we do. If you've ever been to one of our conferences, you know that there's a lot of work that goes into that. And of course the research, actually we have one of our research projects that we're going to talk about tonight as well. But just a lot of things that we end up doing, and we hope that you will get involved in all of it, but certainly pick areas that you think might resonate with you. Everybody see it? Got it? All right. And then lastly, if there's nothing else we do, if you don't go to any events, if you don't go to our website, if you don't do anything, let's at least connect somehow or another, because it's so important for us to be connected to you. And we hope that it's just as important for you to be connected to us. So again, thank you for being here right now. We're going to push the program, and we're going to bring up the CTO, and we're going to have a nice little tech talk. Get your questions ready together. But thank you for being here. So let me bring up the famous or infamous John Paul Farmer, who is the Chief Technology Officer of New York City and is former Microsoft executive who, he supported us throughout his time at Microsoft. So we're very much connected like brothers. And I am so excited for him to be the Chief Technology Officer. I've been through 3 of them already. So it's so nice that it's you, my man. And but John Paul Farmer, one of the things I love about this guy, and like I said, we've known each other for some years now, and fought some battles together. This guy does what he said he's going to do, and he has, I think, really put the whole office of the chief technology on a whole different trajectory. We knew that he was working on a lot. We knew that him and his team were working on a lot. But when he came out with the master plan, has anybody read the master plan?
Yes.
Look at that. An informed audience. That really was something, and we were happy to be mentioned in it and things of that nature. So, welcome John Paul Farmer, if you guys don't mind. Welcome him.
I don't see how this is going to get any better for me, so I feel like I should just leave right now. You've been talking me up. I don't know how much it's true, but I appreciate it.
Listen, you're in Harlem, you ain't going nowhere. Now, we got some things happening after we have the tech talk here, so I want you all to hold on, because we got some more and more explosive things to talk about. And tonight, Silicon Harlem is making a contribution to a nonprofit. Tonight, we're going to do that. Everybody cool? Let's stay for that. Let's start with the master plan, John Paul Farmer. What the hell is it, and what is it supposed to do?
So number one, I want to thank all of you here who've already read it. That's fantastic to hear. For those of you who haven't, I hope you will. And I'll do my first plug. You're going to hear this again. You can go to nyc.gov/CTO and read the master plan yourself. There's also an executive summary, pretty digestible, easy to read. It's simple at the end of the day. This is a roadmap. The New York City Internet Master Plan is a roadmap for closing the digital divide and ensuring that every New Yorker, every resident, every business has high quality broadband at home and on the go. And so why does that matter? Well, we started this whole process by grounding this in 5 principles. And I really appreciate, Clayton, that you talked about the values that Silicon Harlem is rooted in. And this Internet Master Plan is rooted in these 5 principles. The first being equity, second being performance, third being affordability, fourth being privacy, and the 5th one being choice. People should have choice among technologies, among technology providers, and whether to use a technology or not. But what we found is that looking at the current state of things, there is a serious digital divide. And right now, 18% of New Yorkers don't have broadband at home or mobile or on the go. Another 11% have just mobile, and another 11% have just at home. That means 40% of New Yorkers today aren't fully connected, can't fully participate in the digital life of New York City, and can't access all the opportunities for themselves and for their family that we want them to access. So we have to close that divide if we're going to live up to our mayor's goal of making sure that New York City is the fairest big city in America. If we're going to make sure that New York City is future ready and wins the 21st century, then we need to take seriously the fact that the internet might be as important to 21st century New York as electricity or the subway were to 20th century New York. And so we've got to make the investments, we've got to form the partnerships to ensure that people have this foundational platform technology so that they and their families and their businesses can thrive. So that's what the plan is. It's the first one of its kind. No other major city in the United States of America has done anything along these lines. We've been really fortunate to hear great feedback from experts in the space. The author of the 2010 U.S. National Broadband Plan, Blair Levin, said really nice things. That was great. It was in the press release. We've had people from companies large and small. We've had academics, and we've had folks from communities who see the benefit that this plan can bring. And I want to be clear, it's not going to happen overnight. This focuses on partnership. It focuses on bringing everybody to the table to understand the various gaps that exist and the various solutions that we need, because there is no silver bullet. There's no one thing that's going to fix everything. This is a portfolio approach, and it's an invitation for everyone to come to the table with what they can bring.
Well, that's awesome enough. You can go now. So here's the thing. Like, you're right. It's the first of its kind. But there have been cities that have sort of put up these lofty goals and oftentimes have fallen short. How are you going to ensure in a lot of ways that this is going to, in fact, what is your measure of success for the master plan?
Yeah, at the end of the day, they say you get what you measure. Well, we're going to measure new fiber going in the ground, which neighborhoods it's going into, are we reaching new places? We're going to measure new service providers entering the market. We're going to measure price points, what people are actually being asked to pay, because the reality is some of the 60% that are currently fully connected are actually paying unaffordable rates. The rates they're paying are not sustainable, and it's forcing them to make really hard decisions in their lives they shouldn't have to make. And so we're encouraging more competition, new technologies being introduced into the marketplace to ensure that the people who currently have broadband get better broadband at better prices, and the folks who don't have it get it for the first time. So back to your question, how are we measuring it? Fiber in the ground, competition in the market, prices people are paying, and ultimately the biggest measure of them all is how many more people have broadband than had it before.
Well, that's going to be something we'll all be able to watch ourselves, I assume. Some of this data will be made public.
So one of the things we're really proud of is that all of the data underlying the work that we did is available right now on open data. So New York City has been a pioneer going back almost a decade at this point, leading the country in this open data movement, showing that we can open up the data behind the work we're doing, make it available for researchers, for businesses to use in ways that they think are productive. And so all the data that I'm talking about, referring to, the digital divide that I'm referring to, that's all on open data. There are, I believe, both shape files of the maps as well as the raw data underlying it.
So as a quick plug, we're doing an open data workshop on March 5th. And by the way, if you see against that wall where Steve is, there's a QR code. Just click that code and you'll get all of our activities for the year, right? Scan that code with your QR code reader and you'll get our calendar of 2020.
While we're on open data, that's going to be during Open Data Week. You should all check it out. Led by Moda, the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, and Kelly Jin, who's our Chief Analytics Officer.
And I sit on the board. So as a result, we actually have an event during that Open Data Week. And it's important, as you heard me say earlier, data is critical to employment, critical to your business, critical to just about everything that you're going to do. And why not come to this workshop? One of the things that you can get with open data, we'll get back to you in a second, John Paul. But you can look up all types of statistics, all types of information. One of the things that you'll find, for example, is you can look up fire hydrants. Which fire hydrants are earning the most money, right? We actually did that a couple years ago when they first started with the open data and found out that there was a fire hydrant in New York City that was making more money than an average worker, like that type of thing. And we went and said, what is going on here? And found out that the fire hydrant was mismarked. So people were parking and getting these tickets. It was mismarked. Told the police. They went and looked at it and said, yeah, it's mismarked. But nobody got their money back. Anyway, the point is that
That was before my time. I was not involved.
I used to get a good laugh out of that. Now it's like old school, I guess. But you can do that with so many different things. We've done it for, we've looked at the open data that is looking at water, right? They actually measure the feces that are in the waters around us and all these rivers and things of that nature. And there's a actually tolerant level of feces. Okay, let's get back to John.
This went off the rails.
TMI. So now, John Paul, what about uptown Manhattan, right? We're sitting here in the great village of Harlem, and we want to be so supportive of what this master plan is looking to achieve. How can we, and that means Silicon Harlem, that means all of these businesses that are here, that means all of this community, how do we plug into this, help you, accelerate this, make sure this is happening? If there's one thing we want to see happen, whether we make money or not, is that everyone in Upper Manhattan, because the numbers you're quoting of New York City, you can always double it when it comes to Manhattan, right? When it comes to Upper Manhattan. In East Harlem, 50% of people don't have that kind of connectivity you described. In this area, it's 40%. And we don't know if that's even the highest number. There's still people that don't report and things of this nature. But we've had an army of people scouring this Upper Manhattan over the last 2-3 years. From University of Virginia and NYU and others doing surveys, and we're finding a lot of people that do not have the connectivity. So how can we help? How can we be more involved?
Step number one is check out the plan for yourself. So I said it before, I'll say it one more time. nyc.gov/CTO. It's the very first thing that comes up, the New York City Internet Master Plan. And so check it out for yourself. Come to understand what its goals are. Again, it's focused on infrastructure and service. Because at the end of the day, those two things are interconnected. It's not just about the service being unaffordable, it's that the infrastructure is not in place. But because infrastructure is not in place, you've got fewer competitors, which means less affordability, but then less of a reason, because there are fewer customers, for anyone to come invest in the infrastructure. So it's a circular problem that we've got. We've got to tackle it all at the same time. So familiarize yourself with the master plan. First and foremost, we're going to be following up in the coming months with something that the master plan describes as the Universal Solicitation for Broadband, the USB. And this solicitation is going to formally invite everyone, all of you, if you have a business, if you have a great idea, if you're an academic, you've got a research lab, whoever's got something to offer. It's going to invite you to come to the table and describe what that is, what you plan to do, how that's going to address this digital divide in New York City, and what you need from the city to make that happen. And so this is going to be the kickoff to a new era of the city's involvement in closing the digital divide. And it's not going to happen alone. And I think that's something I want to repeat over and over again. This isn't about the city unilaterally solving this problem. This is about the city collaboratively solving the problem with companies and people and organizations that have something to bring to the table. Because the reality is, we've got to recognize it's a glass half full, glass half empty situation. We've got more people in New York City who have universal broadband today than there are people in any other city in the United States of America. We also have more people who are either disconnected or underconnected, 3.4 million. That's more than any other city except for LA. And so we've got something amazing. We've got 500 plus public computer centers. These are rec centers. These are libraries. They're senior centers. That's a fantastic network. We've got great programming happening, but we still have to do more because it's not just the stuff in the ground or the stuff on the rooftops. It's also how we're engaging with communities to ensure that people have the skills they need, people understand the opportunities that are available to them, and the importance of having broadband in their life. What it means for an elderly member of the community, an older New Yorker who could get healthcare information or even see a doctor online. What it means for a child to do homework collaboratively with their classmates and what that means for their achievement and their progress in life. What it means for adults to get new skills, apply for jobs more and more. If you want to apply for the good jobs out there, most of those aren't on paper. They're online. And so we have to make sure that's not simply something people have to walk down to the library for, it's something they have available to them in their life. But we do need to strengthen the libraries, the senior centers, the rec centers, as well as free public Wi-Fi, no-cost public Wi-Fi in public spaces. And so we all know about the kiosks and things of that sort. So I'm going back to the point of there's no one problem, there's no one solution to it. That's why we took the approach we did. It's why we're inviting people to come to the table with the role that they think they, their company, their organization can play in solving the set of problems and challenges that we face.
You know, I saw my doctor last week, and I heard something that I hadn't heard in a long time. 120/80. I said, what? I'm an entrepreneur, and I should be like 1,000 off to 120/80. But in order for me to see anything, he said, you got to go online. If you want to see all your records and everything else, you got to go online. You no longer can sit there and talk with them on a piece of paper. So it's to your point. Everything's going. It's no longer a luxury. In fact, Silicon Harlem calls broadband a utility.
Yes. Yes.
Now, that's another political discussion we'll have another day, but utility means everyone has to have it. So I'm going to open it up to questions to the audience. I think you guys have a good sense of what we're talking about when it comes to the master plan. So anyone, I'm only taking 3 questions. So we're going to start with Ken Granderson.
Hi, Ken Granderson. Both in the 20th century and possibly in the 21st century, one of the main things that can be an equalizer is education. And education has become something that it's almost absolute, an absolute, you've got to be on broadband, for kids to participate. My question is, and forgive me for not having read it already, because the answer may already be in there. Is the Department of Education involved, and folks who basically are the boots on the ground, the teachers who really know, or how to get the kids engaged and how to make sure that when this broadband gets in there, that there will be more kids, using it to increase their opportunities rather than just sharing cat videos. And I like cats.
Good question.
So I will, while you search for the next question, Ken, thanks for that. I absolutely agree with you. Education's critical. We're very fortunate the Department of Education is, I don't know what the word is, bought in, signed off, fully briefed on the Internet Master Plan, and they're into it. We actually have over 30 agencies that we worked with on this Internet Master Plan, so you can imagine the coordination challenges there. But the reality is there are important things happening in lots of different spaces. Department of Education, NYCHA, Tech Talent Pipeline. I know April back here, a proud graduate of a Tech Talent Pipeline program from the Small Business Services Department. So there are things happening all across the agencies. The short answer is education, absolutely essential on board, looking at the role that broadband plays, not just in the schools, because that's part of it. And not just broadband devices. I think in the executive summary, if you pull it up on nyc.gov/CTO, when you pull it up, you'll see one of the first photos is of a couple of kids in their school with a Department of Education laptop learning. And so we need more of that. But we're also thinking about the role that schools play in a community. So it's not just inside the walls, it's also what does that mean outside of school hours? What does it mean when you think about, this is actually a question I think we're asking to the community at this point, what does it mean when we look at public buildings, whichever department owns them, whichever agency operates them, but these are city-owned assets. What should be the role of those city-owned assets, whether they're poles or rooftops or rooms in buildings, in collaboration with some of these new technologies, like fixed wireless, for instance, in expanding access where it doesn't exist today, and perhaps leapfrogging some of the need for fiber. Fiber is going to always be important, and we're going to need that fiber backbone, but we might not need it every single place, providing the connectivity if we can actually build on top with, say, fixed wireless, for example, as one potential.
Michael?
Michael Elling. Real quick, how will the USB be different from your typical RFI, request for information, or RFP, request for proposal, number one? And number two, have you started sketching out financials, meaning is there going to be a pile of money associated with that the city can lend to the process? And I go back to like the BTOP program back in 2009, where we tried to really stimulate mid-mile broadband and what we've learned from that.
For sure. Great question. So there is $70 million that is already budgeted for seed investments, is what I would call it, in communities, neighborhoods that are particularly in need. And so that's the role that we see the city dollars playing. Now, we'd like to leverage that by having complementary private dollars investing where private companies decide it makes sense. And that's what the solicitation is all about. It's coming to understand where various companies, ones that are in the market today and others that aren't in the market today but could be, where they're looking to invest and what they believe is necessary for that to make sense for them. And so, so we see the public dollars as a seed investment. We really, it's hard for me to commit to anything like overall what the long-term public dollars will be or what the timeline will be until we get the responses to the solicitation. And so the question about how is this different from a traditional RFP, one thing is that we see it as iterative. We see this as an iterative process. The master plan, when you look at the entire document, it talks about the next 25 years. Now, we want to get to universal broadband well before that, trust me. But it's talking about over the next 24 years what the opportunity is in terms of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs created, billions and billions of dollars in additional personal income for New Yorkers. And the speed at which we can make progress on this, it's going to depend on what partners come to us with. And it's not a one-time conversation. So we see this moment, we think the Internet Master Plan itself is a milestone moment, but it's just the beginning of a new era of engagement. And so that engagement now takes the form of the universal solicitation for broadband, and it will follow on. It won't end after that either.
One more question over here.
Good evening, John Paul. Dallas Lee Bell, the ECCR Group. Hierarchical question. Partnership for After School Corporation, New York City Science Engineering Fair, which is Department of Education and CUNY, New York City Regional Innovation Node, and IOB in our backyards. How do we bring everybody to one digital table instead of one table for each borough?
Okay. Don't act like you're speechless.
So I am speechless. I'm trying to understand specifically what was the question. So, I mean,
He's trying to align the boroughs around all things STEM and technology. And given that you were doing this master plan, how have you approached that? Oftentimes when you are rolling out an initiative, we're finding that, a certain area might, be the preferred space to be in.
Yeah.
How are you democratizing that for New York City?
It's a tough question for me to answer, partially because so much of it does depend on our colleagues in places like the Department of Education. I'm fully on board, I think, with the sentiment, the importance of STEM education, ensuring equity, ensuring that every borough and every part of every borough has access to these programs. When we look at the master plan, and I hope I'm not repeating myself too much here, but it's the combination of, it's not just the infrastructure, it's also the digital inclusion work. And so I would see efforts around STEM education as part of that digital inclusion work, which will inform some of the infrastructure investments. And so it's tough for us to know at this moment. I take that back. We know some of what we need to know, but we also know there are things we don't know yet. And that's what the solicitation is about. It's soliciting ideas, information, approaches that we should be taking, and places where we should either be investing, the city should be investing, or we should be encouraging private investment. And again, partnership is at the core of this. We're really looking at, well, let me say this. If you wanted to build a broadband network from scratch, citywide, you could do that. But why would we ignore the fact that we've got all these great resources already here? We've got infrastructure in the ground, we've got service providers that have experience providing services. Let's make all those things better. Let's complement those things. And where need be, let's incentivize those players to adjust their choices and ensure that we actually get the kind of coverage that is citywide for the infrastructure, for the services, and for the programming, so that everybody benefits from the opportunity that's created by the internet and by broadband. So hopefully that answers the question. I think I'll be able to answer it better in a few months. And maybe you can help me answer it better.
Thank you. I think John Paul will stay for another 5 or 10 minutes, so you guys get a chance to talk to him. So I'm not gonna, we have a big program that we gotta continue on, but do you have any final words you wanna say to this audience? Are you good? You said everything you wanted to say? Make sure you
So,
get everything you
there's
want
this
out
website you can go to.
there.
nyc.gov/CTO. So we want you to read the plan. We really do, because we want to hear feedback. And it's this iterative process I was talking about. Second thing I want to say is that Kim at the beginning mentioned that her company had just become certified as an MWBE. That's fantastic. I want to encourage everybody else here, if you qualify, to think about registering as an MWBE with the city, becoming eligible for contracts with the city. You may or may not know that as of January 1st, the cap for certified MWBEs to participate in contracts with the city, up to $500,000 now is the cap for small procurements. So quote unquote small procurements, which are a little faster, don't require as much time or some of the competitive requirements that the larger bids do. So that number used to be $20,000, something along those lines. $500,000 if you are certified as an MWBE and there's a contract with a city agency that makes sense. So I want to encourage everybody on that. And finally, I want to say, I think your microphone's better than mine. How did you get the good microphone? Maybe it's just your voice sounds better. I don't know. All right, thank you everybody for having me. I'm going to hang out for a little bit. Please come say hi.
Hey, listen, this is big. The CTO, Harlem. First time ever to have something like that announced in Harlem. Thank you, John Paul. What we're going to do now is, I promised we would do a donation. We're going to do that while we're doing that. Gil, if you can come on up and plug in. We're going to talk very quickly about another opportunity, which is the Cosmos project. You guys some of you may have heard me talk a little bit about it. Here's one of our PIs that is going to talk about it and the impact it has on education. In the meantime, I'd like to bring up one. Come on up here, one. Come on. Where is she? Is she still here? Hold on a second. Dimitri, where is my thing? Dave K, what's up, man? Dimitri, where are you?
I'll go get him.
Okay. Introduce yourself and tell them what you do.
Wow. My name is Wilma Brown Phillips. I am the district leader here in Harlem for the Democratic Club, the Freddie Samuel Community Democratic Club. We've been here from inception. This particular club has been around for the past, when I think about it, about 40 years. 40 years. A lot of judges have come through who are now Supreme Court judges, civil court judges. We have put a lot of different elected officials in place. But the district leader, as I am, we are actually volunteer people who actually are the voices for those who cannot speak for themselves. So when you say, hey, Wilma, I got a housing issue, and you really don't want to do the talking, I'm gonna go do that talking for you, because I just don't stop. Or you may say, hey, Wilma, my kids, my teacher over here in this school is not treating my child. Well, come on, let's talk about it. I'm gonna walk you through the whole process, because you have people like myself and others who are good at advocating for our community. And that's what actually DL does. She does all those things that you think that your politicians should do. I think what they do are legislation and bills, but we really do the grunt work and the grassroots people. And I really applaud all district leaders. So when I had the opportunity when the census was coming out, I said, oh no, I don't want to be a manager. I know I'm a manager. I want to take lead and organize in Harlem through the census, because 2010 we did not do well at all. We did not receive a lot of federal funding that we should have, and that was not due to the elected officials, that was due to us. That was due to us, the people who actually live here, the people who live in building 505, 2A or 2B, 2C, who felt that when the mailing came out to their home, said, I don't have to do this. But what we failed to realize, when you don't do your part, then we do not receive monies. We do not receive schools. Sanitation trucks take their time coming through the block, or we very well may only get 2. Or we may not get, for our elders that, who go to the senior centers, we get no money for our seniors. And some of us are growing old here, who like to be here, but we're not getting any money. And that is because we failed. We failed ourselves. We relied on our elected officials to run all these policies through and all these bills and thought that was enough. When the census come through, that part is you. That's you. I don't care if you just moved here yesterday and you're living in that high rise with that doorman. That census is you. You now live in Harlem. You're a part of Harlem, so it's important that we start reaching out, knocking on the doors and telling our people, March 12, 2020, the mailing is going to start coming out. So when I found out about this, I said, well, I'm going to jump on this, so let me call Clay. Clay, I need your help. Oh, I need your help, Clay. I don't mind walking, and I've done 10 marathons, so I'm good at running. I'm very good, but I'm also good at reaching out to people who I know who care. And so we call Harlem cares. Clay, we know you care.
And we're scared.
Oh, please be. Because I'm not scared. I'm not scared, son.
How about it for one more? Don't go nowhere. Ben, where's Ben? We're going to take the picture. Dimitri, let's present our donation. Hold the cord. We are presenting the laptop, very powerful computer, by the way, we made sure of that, to her and her organization. Congratulations. I'm so proud of her. If you want to learn anything about the census, Rowan's got all the information.
I appreciate it.
Very good. Okay, here we go.
Oh, I get the good mic. See, that sounds so much better. So I realized that I had not corrected a lie that Clayton had told you. He told you that I was responsible for the Internet Master Plan. And I'm very happy that I was able to participate and contribute to it. I'm very proud of what we produced. But there was a large team that worked on this. And nobody worked on it more than Josh Breitbart, who's our deputy CTO for broadband. Doing an incredible job. In addition to Josh, Kate Homan leading our digital inclusion efforts, along with Anthony Sanford, who himself has roots in Silicon Harlem. So coming from Silicon Harlem to the city, working to make this master plan happen. So I could go on and on. There are people at dozens of agencies. But just to be clear, it was a team effort. And it's building on top of not just the last few months or last year, it's building on top of the work that's been happening for years. And Silicon Harlem has been a big part of that. So when you go from Cosmos to the corridor, all the stuff that's happening here in Harlem, that's been foundational to helping us learn what works, what's needed, where the gaps are, and go from there. So with that, I just want to make clear, team effort, building on top of the work that came before, and we hope you'll get involved with us to make this even better in the future. Thanks so much, everybody.
Well, I'm not gonna let it just slide and you call me a liar or whatever. It's like the President of the United States. Whoever's the president gets credit for whatever's happening. Okay, some people got what I said. Let's go, Gil. This is Gil Zussman, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna do a quick overview of our Cosmos project that we are so proud of. Anyone associated with the Cosmos project here? Oh, there she is. You come up here. You come up here right away. You introduce yourself.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brooke Williams, and I definitely was a part of the Cosmos program this summer. I'm a teacher at Arthur Tappan Middle School, which is right down the street. Thank you. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade mathematics. I must say, it was a pleasure to be a part of this program. This program opened my colleagues and our eyes up to different projects that we can bring into the classroom. We just received our toolkits within the past couple of weeks, and as they're being installed, our students are anxious and enthusiastic about getting started. They are ready to do research, they are ready to do labs, and they are putting in the work to actually get the product that we want them to get out of this. Thank you. Thank you to Silicon Harlem and Clay for inviting me tonight, as well as inviting us to everything that you do. This summer we got to come out and visit your program when they were testing drones, which was amazing. You really are doing great work here. Thank you.
Thank you.
The point here is Brooke is an extraordinary teacher. Furthermore, if you really heard what she said, she teaches mathematics. So that's no play. You can't play with that. But the point is that we are sharing what we're doing through Cosmos, which is advanced wireless, and we're sharing that with teachers in Harlem and other parts of the city so that they can create curriculum in their classroom. That means the kids in those classrooms are learning about advanced wireless technology way outside of what their normal curriculum would be. But when you think about the future and what has to happen, it's going to be people like that are getting that access and exposure that will lead the way. So it's unprecedented that a National Science Foundation puts in millions and millions of dollars into Harlem to look at this research and, more importantly, allow us to connect with teachers. You don't see that. That means, if you hear me clearly, and you've heard me say this before, IBM, Danielle doesn't like me saying this, and Pookie and them, they can both be on the same test bed. That's unprecedented. When you're going to have a regular student right next to IBM or any other major corporation that wants to run a radio or some type of application on our test bed, that can be done now. So that's the way we're moving this community. Thank you so much for your service. You're amazing.
Thank you.
All right, Gil wants to show a few slides. Why don't you start with that, Gil?
Yeah, I'm professor. I have to show slides, right? Okay. You have a better microphone.
Everyone wants my microphone.
Okay. Now do I sound like Clayton? No. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit about the Cosmos project. I'll just say this is a project, this is a big collaboration. This is being led by Rutgers University, people in another state, New Jersey, but they're nice people, Columbia and NYU, along with New York City. Josh Breitbart, who was just mentioned here, was a key player here, and the people in red, Silicon Harlem, of course. City College of New York, IBM, and University of Arizona. They are very far away, but they are very good in fiber. So basically, the motivation here is that we know that since 2012, there are actually more cellular users on the planet than toothbrush users. So there are many devices out there are many users out there, but the applications are also moving away from, I need connectivity, to cars needs to be connected, Internet of Things types of devices. A lot of things are changing. And of course, augmented and virtual reality. And on the other side, so this is the applications, this is what we are doing with these devices. On the other side, there are many technologies that are emerging. Some of them are going into 5G, some of them will not go into 5G, will go into whatever future G that is out there. And they're listed here just as an example. Millimeter wave is something we hear about a lot, massive MIMO, and others. So 3 summers ago, basically the National Science Foundation said that they will invest in 4 city-scale testbeds across the country to study next generation wireless. How do we develop the next generation of technologies? And a unique aspect of, they call it a city-scale testbed. It's not a scale of our city, it's not a scale of our neighborhood, but it's large, okay? So a large testbed, the testbed is basically an outdoor lab for experimenting with wireless technologies. And the unique aspect here, it's not just federal money, it's also support from 30 different companies. So these are the logos of the various companies that committed to support the testbed in one way or another. You can see, of course, the immediate candidates, the Verizons and the AT&Ts and the Qualcomm, but many others are very interested in future wireless because it affects everything that we basically do. So, of course, it's not just Clayton and me doing all the work. There are many people that are involved. So you can see the team again here, and I mentioned before the different organizations, so everybody should get credit. This is a large operation. So one thing I want to say on the technical side, if we think about future wireless, 2 important components are low latency and compute close to the edge of the network. Up to now, we wanted kilobits per second, megabits per second, gigabits per second. We wanted just high rate. If you go to the future, you want very low latency. The easiest example are cars that drive themselves or are assisted by the cloud in order to drive themselves. The car needs to decide if to turn left and not to turn left. If it will send the compute job to somewhere in Oregon or Virginia or whatever and will wait until the result comes back, it will go over the old lady, right? So basically, we cannot basically wait until we get a response from somewhere in the cloud in order to understand what's going on. So between the famous cloud that is basically down here and the edge cloud and the users that are up there, we have the edge cloud. Okay, so the edge cloud is a very important component. It provides computing close to the edge. So our objective when we build this testbed is basically to enable researchers, not only us in Columbia, NYU, and so on, but anyone basically in the country to log in remotely, connect to the testbed, and test his or her applications with ultra-high bandwidth, gigabits per second, very low latency, below 5 milliseconds between you ask for something, you get a response, and very dense environment. If you think about an intersection around here that will be connected with cameras and lidars and compute and cars that theoretically drive, I'm just saying again theoretically, that drive themselves, all of those will generate terabits per second per square kilometer. So in order to do that, we actually are building the testbed, and the testbed includes all kinds of components. We have millimeter wave radios from IBM. These are devices that developed along with Ericsson that are going into Verizon base stations, but once they're in Verizon base stations, we cannot play with them, nobody can play with them. Here they will be open and programmable is a key component here, means that you can write your own code and play with the testbed. We'll have tens of miles of the Manhattan dark fiber. You can see here, the track that connects us downtown to the NYU data center. This was fiber provided by the CTO office, and others will provide additional fiber, but this was instrumental actually to get the grant, and Silicon Harlem played a role even before we got the grant in obtaining this fiber. And what we would call beyond 5G base station. So this is not a 5G testbed. We don't work, for an industry consortium, but we are trying to think about what will be there after 5G. So again, once you have all of that, you can think about all kinds of applications, augmented reality, virtual reality, whatever you want to come up with. So I will not go into all the technical details. I can talk about this for hours and hours, as Clayton knows. But I would just say that, if you want to get an idea of what we're talking about, this is an existing lab or testbed in Rutgers University. Brooke was there. They hang 400 machines or PCs from the ceiling. All of them are software-defined radios, programmable. You can log in remotely and run your experiment, but this is in a closed environment, so this is a big hangar. If you want to run an experiment in the wild, what I would call, you have to develop the next generation and place them here. So where is here, just to provide some context? We are this is a picture from 120th Street, from the northern part of the Columbia campus, looking north, the George Washington Bridge over there. So basically the area is between 120 and 135, more or less where the subway goes back into the tunnel, and from the river to City College over there. So we are using, the university assets that are convenient for us to, hang boxes on top of them, nobody asks questions. So this is the edge of the campus here, the new Manhattanville campus, and some city college. But in between, there are many city assets. Of course, there are all kinds of light poles. You see boxes on the light poles right now by the providers. The CTO office, did it go away or is it still here? The city office will provide several light poles. And similarly, there are NYCHA buildings and, of course, schools and other city assets that could be used in order to deploy the network. I think that's more or less from the vision point of view. This is where we are. We actually already have the pilot running. Anyone who wants to run experiments at small scale can already do that. FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, actually designated this an innovation zone. This is one of the 2 first innovation zones in the country. This means that if you have a company and you want to run experiments on a set of frequencies, instead of going through all the federal bureaucracy, there is a very streamlined process saying you could use these frequencies and run the experiment in the testbed area. If you have a license somewhere else and you already went through the bureaucracy, you could bring your equipment here and run the experiments in the area. Phase 1 hopefully will be done, next fall, and all of those are relying mostly on Columbia and City College, and then we will work with the city assets. This is just to show where we are. We pulled some fiber. We is of course not me, but people pulled some fiber. But at the end of the day, we have fiber connectivity to all the nodes because we want very high bandwidth and very low latency. You cannot do that with regular Ethernet, and you really want to provide the people that run experiments the capability to have very high bandwidth. So we pulled fiber to the different locations. We deployed one experimental base station on top of the engineering building at Columbia at 120 in Amsterdam. So you can more or less get the sense of the scale and the coverage. And we deployed a couple of what I would call small scale or medium nodes at Columbia, again 120 in Amsterdam, and we are now moving north along Amsterdam towards City College. Before I talk about education, one thing I want to say is that we are not doing research as part of this project. We are building the infrastructure, enabling anyone to develop his or her own applications or to run the research. But we are running a few example experiments just to provide or to get a sense of the capabilities. And one of them is to think about smart intersections or road safety. So you can see here that if you had cars that theoretically drive themselves or pedestrians that you would like to warn, you could track whatever is going on in the intersection and use this data if you can report back quickly. And there are various questions that you can ask, and if you really want to experiment with that, actually the guys in Rutgers built some kind of an emulation where you can run around some toy cars and play with that. And there are many, of course, research questions. One of the important ones that again was raised by Silicon Harlem and others is privacy. If you have cameras everywhere, we actually have cameras everywhere anyway, but if you have cameras everywhere, how do you make sure that not all this information is provided, to the big brothers out there? When you walk on the street, you cannot opt out. Theoretically, when you download an app, you could opt out and say, I don't want people to track me. Not everybody does that. But when you walk on the street, you cannot do that. So how do we do some of this processing without providing information about everybody to everybody else? So that's that. The last thing I want to say is, again, about the education that Clayton started with that. We have cool videos about that online. I don't think it will work here with the microphones and everything. But the bottom line is that we have been, along with building the testbed, we have been developing what I would call middle school and high school STEM education program. In the last 2 summers, we have 10 teachers every summer, 10 teachers in 2018, 10 teachers in 2019, in NYU and at Columbia. They spent about 3 weeks learning about wireless, and then 3 more weeks developing experiments that they took back to their schools. So if you think about some of the stuff that kids learn in 8th grade or 9th grade, x to the 4 or x to the whatever, this is not very exciting. But if you show how this relates to the quality of experience of Netflix or Disney Plus, then so there are things that you could use wireless technologies in order to demonstrate very easily. Of course, if you talk about wave propagation and other things that are, again, not exciting, but relate very clearly to the cellular signal, then this becomes really exciting. So the teachers took those concepts from wireless and connected them to their curriculum in math, in physics, in other areas. And the teachers, of course, received stipend for spending the summer, so we are recruiting teachers for the next summer. If you know a teacher, you know a principal, you know an assistant principal, you know somebody, just refer them to us, and we are looking for teachers to spend the summer with us, again, at NYU and Columbia. And I think that's more or less that.
There's going to be a test, everyone. I'm going to come to you. So I will take a few questions, but if you don't mind, Gil, I just have one or two questions for you. You just gave a really good sort of description of what we're doing with Cosmos. Where does this go? Like a year from now, if you were to think about a year from now or 2 years from now, where do you think this project will be?
So right now, again, we are at the pilot phase. We are building it such that in a year from now, we open it for experimentation. Opening it for experimentation means any researcher in the US, could be, you know, people from California or people from downtown, can remotely start using it. And we also hope that more and more industry users will show up here and start using the testbed. So that's the place where we think will be here for now. And again, we keep doing the educational program. One important aspect is once the testbed is operational and online, right now the teachers needed to take, you know, $2,000 of equipment back to their school in order to run the experiment. Once this is online, you could log in remotely and run many of those experiments. So then it's scalable to many, many other schools. You don't just need the teachers that spend the summer with us to be able to run it.
How many in here have heard about 5G? Oh, Gil, everyone has. So the question is, what does that have to do with Cosmos?
So Cosmos will test some of the technologies that go into 5G. I don't want to say this is a 5G testbed because, you know, by the rate we operate, you know, 5G hype is already out there. We want to develop the next generation of technology. So some of the technologies that go into 5G, and 5G will be with us for the next decade, will be tested in the testbed. So you could call it 5G.1 and 5.5, and there will be all kinds of things. So for example, full duplex, this is technology when you can transmit and receive at the same time, did not go officially into 5G, but may end up there at some point. So those technologies will be tested in the testbed. But as you know, as soon as 5G is out there, you know, on your phone, people are studying 6G or whatever G, you know, is out there. So right now, I would like to call it an advanced wireless rather than call it a Wi-Fi testbed or a Bluetooth testbed or a 5G testbed. Yes.
I'm going to go to the audience. Although my voice sounded pretty good on that other one. I don't know. We have a question over here. We're going to take two more, and then Olivier and Bruce, you guys get ready.
Thank you. I'm glad I came here. I have a question for you. I'm currently running a program in the school where I teach. I have a high-end MSI system. I'm running two 1080 cards, NVIDIA cards, and I'm testing some high-end virtual reality games. And the problem, as you know, is the latency issue. Board of Ed cannot handle that, so this is exactly what I need. So as far as hardware, what do you guys provide for the back end?
So again, I want to be very clear, and I told this to Clayton many times. We are not going to provide, I would say, broadband service in the neighborhood or anything along those lines. If we get to a school, you know, that is in the coverage area that, you know, is agreed with the city, we would be happy to put some of our radios over there, which will provide you better connectivity. But if you are, you know, if you are in East Harlem and you are not in our, if you are in East Harlem and you are not under our umbrella, it's very difficult for me to replace DOE, right? So that's but we can talk later and think of creative solutions.
Any other questions that we have? We have one here.
Hi, I'm Frances Harding. So I run a nonprofit called Brains Academy, and my goal is to spread STEAM all over the world. I run a summer school program very similar to what you're doing here, but in Dominican Republic and Haiti. How do I connect with you guys to make sure that we have this for the most impoverished people in our countries and in our nation.
So talk to me afterward. And basically, as I said, there are two options that we see right now. We already have this education toolkit that costs $2,000. You know, we don't sell it. You just go online and buy pieces and then put the software on it. And then you can take it to any school and basically follow the material and the curriculum that the teachers developed. You know, I don't know, develop sixth grade material, but they know. Or if we move forward a little bit, then you would be able to log in remotely and run the experiments on the test. But right now, if you want to move forward quickly, you just, I think, need to get the hardware, install the code, and then run those experiments. And everything is online. Basically, the curriculum, the lesson plans, everything, they placed it online.
Okay, we're gonna have one last question.
My name's Liz. I'm a retired science supervisor with the Board of Ed for my own company, Growing Stems. I'm just, the teachers, do they have to come from Harlem or they do have to be within the...
So the DOE told us that they should be from all over the city.
Okay.
But it's up to now, half of them were from around here and half of them were from all over the city, including all boroughs up to Staten Island South.
You have a final comment at all, Gil?
No, thank you
good?
for having me here.
Let's thank Gil Zussman. Doing great work. Still a little bit more program. We're on time. We're gonna introduce you to, and those who've been here before know about this project. I've talked about it. But we're gonna talk a little bit about it tonight. One of the things that we aim to do is to create an advisory board in the community. So if anyone's interested, please see Bruce and Olivier, who are about to come up here and talk. And so, Bruce, Olivier, you guys come on up here.
Test. So good evening, I'm Bruce Lincoln. I'm the co-founder and the Chief Technology Officer of Silicon Harlem. And I'm joined here by, no, there's no slides. We did want to get the slide, but hopefully you remember it, where Gil showed that slide. It was in blue and it showed the cloud, the edge cloud, and then the streetscape as what we're doing is moving the internet closer to the user. And so what we're going to do is talk about sort of an interesting product that has more of a sociological and sort of a community orientation that's also funded by the National Science Foundation, which is kind of one of the stair steps to Cosmos. But before that, I want to just acknowledge two key people in what we do. One is Judith Desir. She's our coding instructor. Judith, please stand up. And one of our graduates is Yoko. Yoko is in her 80s. She graduated from our coding program, and she produced a website on Japan. So we basically touch young people all the way to our seniors. And what we're going to talk about now is community. So one of the products that we're involved with has an acronym called SEEC. It's sort of a shortened version of sort of a secure, energy-efficient, edge cloud community infrastructure that's in Harlem. In short, it's this idea of, if we look at what's being developed from the standpoint of Cosmos, the advanced fiber optic connectivity, the use of the radios that are pushing into this gigabit space, SEEC is where we're starting to think about how does a community interact with technology, both as users, but also as part of the governing body. And Olivia has done a great deal of work in that. Just to preface, Olivia and I met in 2006. We were at the Columbia Institute for Teleinformation, and at that time I was talking about the next generation internet, this idea of a gigabit internet. Olivier was doing work around the digital divide, but not looking at it from the normal perspective, but one that had a legal framework looking at digital equality. So what I want to do is ask him a few questions, have him talk a little bit about this work that drives what he does, and then that will lead us to where we're looking at how do we make sure that the community is involved in the development of this next generation technology. Olivier, talk a little about your digital equality work and what that comes out of, please. And also give us a little bit of your background.
Thank you, Bruce. So I teach law at Fordham Law School. I see many familiar faces. I've seen many of you here before. I'll try not to be repetitive. I think Bruce was also was understating the case for his engagement. He's actually, you coined the phrase engineering for equity. Is that right? Yeah. Bruce has been thinking about what I think many of us here have been thinking about, and how to resolve and redress inequality in the distribution of all kinds of resources. But I happen to be very interested in communications, as most of you, I think, in this room are, because of its vital role in the way we govern our lives. You heard about Clayton and his medical business, but education, engagement with government agencies. I mean, these are key aspects of how we operate in the world. More than that, in social ways as well. So I don't think this is a crowd I need to persuade on why equality is important. What we've been trying to think about is how to operationalize, formalize that as a matter of law.
Talk a bit more about how that looks from the way that you think of it. Sort of this idea of a community oriented or governed, web space, this idea of a commons. How do those things connect with some of the work that's really pushing the envelope as it has to do with the actual engineering and advancement of the technologies?
So you heard about Cosmos, which is a remarkable NSF project, and it's just extraordinary that it's happening here uptown. What our project is doing is, I think, it's kind of a localized version of how to deploy that kind of infrastructure in ways that matter to the communities that are affected. And the way to do that, and under our approach, what we're trying to prototype is creating a governance body that is reflective of the people who will be benefiting from the service. In fact, sufficient that they are engaged in developing applications and thoughts about what the priorities ought to be for such a network. We heard a little bit about how data protection and privacy might be important to a community. What does that look like in any given local deployment? So to be a little more practical about this, imagine public housing that has an edge cloud server in its basement. We would distribute devices that are being developed by our team to members of the community that are engaged, and everyone who is involved would have a role in deciding what kinds of applications they will be able to run on this high-end computing network. That resolves much of the equality problem, just to be clear, to get to your question, because I don't need to tell you, this community is not necessarily served well, and communities around the country, by incumbents. It's not always true, but generally is true. And it might be because we are not properly reflected in the decisions about how the services are deployed. What does it look like when community members are involved in deciding what kind of service they get?
So that dovetails with this idea of, and I want you to talk more about this, of participatory design. As we develop these advanced technologies, we are working hand in hand with the community. Can you talk more about that? And also how it is inclusive. It's not that you need technical expertise to participate. We just need to have your thoughts on how this would make your lives better. Can you elaborate?
This is the challenging piece of it. You just heard from a real technologist in what Gail was talking about. I don't think of myself a technologist. Bruce is a technologist. Clayton is much more of a technologist than I am. But what does it look, how do we engage lay people in making decisions about the administration of infrastructure that might be strange and hard to understand? That's a hard problem. And you do need some expertise. You need sophistication in sorting that out. On the other hand, you want to have stakeholders that are part of the decision making that reflect all parts of the community. Not everybody trying to do something that's an alternative to the way in which people receive broadband.
A year ago, we basically did a meetup in the housing projects that are located down the street here at 128th Street and 129th Street. And we did it there despite the fact that there was a huge leak in their computer lab. The idea was to really get to that environment, work with those stakeholders. Olivier was there with his colleague.
You said it. There we were in the basement of all the right players are there to help make a decision about this. And one of the things, as Clayton said, and as you said, Bruce, is part of the project aim is to find an advisory board, right? People that will comprise the decision, help to comprise the decision-making body of the project's prototype.
So the outgrowth of that is that we are now working, as I alluded to, Judith is also teaching coding at St. Nicholas Houses. We're working with some of their vulnerable populations to make sure that they're learning technology. So, you know, we're very focused on really making sure this happens in the community. And so I hope this snapshot triggered some questions. So I'd really like to now take this to the audience so you can continue to have an interaction with Olivier. Yes, ma'am.
Talk about equality. What I hear you saying is if 5G becomes a utility, then it's much like aids to daily living for somebody who's sick. And those are basic things, and we all need it. So why can't we keep it simple and have the technology be access to medical, access to healthcare resources, et cetera, as opposed to educating folks to governance. I hear the advisory board, that makes sense, you know, input versus governance, but I really don't see where we can educate folks enough to govern.
Great question. I'm not reflective of the community's interests. That is the head of a community, any community, is, so she replied by saying, we have scale and size. So Sheila Foster, our colleague, who some of you have met, has mapped out, has a theory in thinking about who the stakeholders are, their schools, their civic institutions, and their companies. All of these folks have representatives that come together to make decisions about what the service ought to look like. That doesn't mean that abilities. On the other hand, we want to make sure that we develop an advisory board that is sufficiently reflective. And this is a research project that we are prototyping. The idea would be, if this is successful, if we find the right criteria, maybe we can scale this up. Maybe this can be replicated elsewhere. So as to Harlem, everybody is potentially, insofar as they are constantly engaged in what's happening here, this is the hub for what we've been thinking about. That's a start.
Yeah, I'm an educator in the system. My name is Winard Ranellis, and I look at it from a different lens. I think, because like right now I have kids in the lab where you have lower elementary level, 4th and 5th grade kids already knowing how to program and SSH and hacking into things. And I use that approach, like a physical computing, in the process of teaching them that the most important thing is responsibility. As far as the technology is a match, you can do evil or good with it. It's up to how you use it. So what has to happen with the scaling aspect, somehow we have to find a way to get that in a bamboozle way or grassroots way into the system. Because all you need is to build the critical mass, just like it's you here and a conscious person. Just imagine if we had 20 kids that coming up at that age and they become the you. So my thing is, as far as education is concerned, how do you see we can get that in the system to bring that change?
So I love this question. It is related to what we've heard before. I love the work that you're doing. Education is key no matter what we do. And Silicon and Harlem has known this forever, if you know anything about what they do. But your question is, how do you, in spite of all the information they get, how do you keep people responsible? They learn to hack. They learn how to build machines and systems. Do they know how to use it responsibly? That's a question that Silicon Valley, you ask me, has not done very well on. And this is what I've been writing about. How do we instill this? And this is, for me, not a technology question. This is a civic responsibility question. And you can think of all kinds of skills that people learn. The key question is, how are you going to use all that? How are you going to use all that? So I'm afraid my answer to your question is that this is not just about the technology. This is about instilling a sense of engagement and responsibility. We have I'll say one last thing about this. The prevailing laws in this area, at least with regards to applications on the internet, basically absolve companies of social responsibility under law. We can't allow that to happen for the people coming up.
Hi. My name is Scott Thomas. So I work down on Wall Street, and I know down there that data latency is a big deal because it's millions for a split second. The main thing I have, it seems that it's funneling a lot of the colleges and then getting their data networks. It's like high definition, and kind of scares me for would be is then while they're building this, are they also putting in hardcore limits on what can be done and who can view and et cetera?
I think Gail should probably answer that. As to the video he showed, he did say that Silicon Harlem has been engaging them on prioritizing privacy. There are a lot of things we can say about this. We can be even more specific about emergent face recognition technology and recent stories about an application you may have seen where you can now, there's someone who's now selling a product that can capture an image and actually develop information about that person for someone who pays for it. Anybody. That's frightening. So there are actually legal norms addressed to this. Europe has been far ahead than we have on this. The General Data Protection Regulation has, among other things, data minimization requirements or purpose limitation rules. That's to say, you can't use the data for anything more than what you pay for service. I don't know how to answer the big brother question you just asked as to Cosmos.
Being very careful, already hanging something on the building and it's very expensive, so we said we'll put the camera there to go through all the IRBs, university project at Columbia, and a lot of the aspects of the research project is actually, if this is out there, and this will be out there for us, if you think about, the link NYC kiosk, and there are many cameras out there, privacy aspects in a responsible way, companies of the world. No, so the Cosmos is unrelated to Columbia Ethernet. So it's our internal network that is separate than the Columbia Ethernet. That's why we run our own fibers. They don't want our experimental traffic on the Columbia Ethernet. And similarly,